What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to my channel, guys. If you're new here, I'm Ruxor098. I do Magic the Gathering content here on my YouTube, as well as variety streams on twitch.tv/Ruxor098. And this channel here is meant to give you guys some more insight, as just general help with Magic the Gathering. I've been playing for many, many years, as well as I'm also a game designer, as well as, I also played competitively, still play competitively when I can. And yeah, so I just want to, do what I can and give people, some help. And yeah, so I'm doing a new thing today. I wanted to do some videos, weekly, and so I wanted something nice to do. And so I actually recently built a brand new commander deck. And I play a lot of the formats, on Arena, but I also do Commander as well as, Limited, and all those sorts of things. And I haven't really done a lot with Commander recently, and I recently built this new Commander deck. Very, very fun. Ordered all the cards in the mail, been playing it with my friends on Cockatrice. And so I wanted to just kind of, share, some thoughts about the deck, kind of do a little bit of deck tech and see if you guys like this format. And if you do, I'll, maybe get some of my friends lists or just find some lists online to kind of review. And that'll be kind of a cool deck tech to do. Obviously not doing gameplay because that would be kind of hard to do with Commander. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. And if you guys do end up liking the video, make sure to leave a like and a comment. Let me know. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Alright guys, so the commander that I ended up building with is the new one from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, Vadrik Astral Archmage. And it's Izzet. Everybody knows Izzet is one of my favorite colors. Human Wizard starts off as a 1/2, and it involves the Day-Night mechanic from the set. And basically, whatever it switches from day to night or night to day, it gets a +1/+1 counter, fairly straightforward. But the amazing part of Vadrik is his passive static ability of instants and sorcery spells you cast cost X less to cast, where X is Vadrik's power. So at base level, it's 3 mana for a 1/2 that is a Goblin Electromancer. Not too flashy, right? But if we can somehow increase Vadrik's power, then all of a sudden our spells cost even less and even less, and it just kind of go from there. So let's take a look at the deck. So here is what I have. Again, this is a lot of these cards are very similar to kind of a standard decks that can be found online. I've made some changes because of my personal preference, and I'll go into those. But the deck is essentially a Storm deck. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a combo deck. I have played lots and lots of combo decks, or some kind of, some form of degeneracy, with like things like my Alesha deck, or, things with like Zedru or things like that. So, kind of sticking to my guns here. But trying a new thing. I have not played Storm before, so I think the way this deck plays is super, super cool. So let's go into this. So at a base level, we are a Storm deck, and so we need 3 things to be a Storm deck. We need mana, card draw, and then a win condition. So let's talk about the mana portion, because that is probably the most complicated, way of going about it, because one of the ways that this deck generates mana is by increasing Vadrik's power. Like Vadrik, is kind of the thing that is pushing the deck. You need to have Vadrik, obviously. And so how are we increasing Vadrik's power, and how does that generate mana for us? So we have a ton of pump spells, like Seething Anger, Reckless Charge, but we also have a lot of pump spells that have X in their cost. So we have cards like Enrage, we have Lunar Frenzy from the new set as well. Kind of interesting that they put this card in with Vadrik, and it's like, hey, this is a card that works really well with Vadrik when we get going. And then there's another one in here somewhere, I thought. Are those the only ones? There's Enrage, Lunar Frenzy, and I thought there was one more. Oh, and Rush of Blood. Rush of Blood and... Where are you at? Unleash Fury, which does double its power, and then Rush of Blood, which says +X +O, where X is its power, which essentially is double its power. I love Rush of Blood, by the way. Rush of Blood has been one of my favorite cards. I don't know why it is, but yeah. I get like Teamer Battle Rage is like a card that's like people would point me towards instead of this card. But here we want power. We don't just want like attacking power. We want actual factual power. Um, so yeah, so once we increase Vadrik's power, the more and more we have a bunch of our mana reduction. So there's also things like Seething Song. Where is Seething Song in here? Seething Song, as well as um, Brass's Bounty to make lots of treasures. On both of these cards also provide lots and lots of mana, as well as Apex of Power, which when cast from the hand, exile 7 cards. We can cast those cards, but then it also just generates 10 mana of any one color. So if we cast this for 3 mana, it's net 7 mana, which is crazy. And that is something that I do a lot of time. I like that Apex of Power is in this deck. This is one of the cards that I search for, or like I'm trying to get in my hand a lot of the time. Yeah. So those are kind of like our main mana things. Again, we're just trying to, use Lunar Frenzies. We also have Fist of Flame, which can be kind of funny. Is draw a card, and then it gets trample and +1/+0 for each card we've drawn. So if we're drawing lots of cards with our card draw, then all of a sudden we just cast a Fist of Flame, and then it's even bigger. Frantic Search can also generate mana. That's a known thing. Yeah, what else? Yeah, and then we also have 2 creatures that I'll talk about later because there are, spoiler alert, they're also part of combos here. We got Burgi, God of Storytelling. We're primarily casting it for the Burgi side. I haven't really cast it for the Horn of Bounty side. Just whenever you cast a spell, add a red, and then you don't lose that between phases ending or phases passing until the end step. And then it has the boast thing, but we don't care about that. Again, we literally just care about adding mana when we cast spells. This essentially makes any spell that ends up costing 1 red mana completely free, because you cast the spell for 1 red mana, and then we get the 1 red mana. And then also same thing for Stormkiln Artist, which, gets +1/+0 for each artifact, but also just has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy, we get a treasure token. The copying clause in here is actually super relevant. There's a lot of cases, with Archmage Emeritus and Stormkiln or Zaphi, that we are copying spells, and you'll see that a lot. It's pretty cool. So yeah, we talked a little bit about the mana generation here. There's also Mana Geyser. Mana Geyser can do some busted things sometimes. If people just like tap out, and then you just like cast a bunch more spells and end the game because, well, they tapped out. So yeah, now let's talk about the card draw side. And we've got lots and lots of different effects here. We of course talked about Archmage Emeritus, just Magecraft, draw a card. We also have lots and lots of cards like Mind Spring. I call them Mind Spring effects instead of, I forget what some of the other like Blue Sun's effects. Because Mind Spring is kind of like the card that I think of when I think of these effects now, just because Mind Spring is like the classic effect of just blue X, draw X cards. So getting lots and lots of cards. Yeah. Well, let me zoom in a little bit more. That might be better. So then, yes, and then we have obviously Blue Sun Z, this pull from tomorrow, as well as my favorite, which is Finale of Revelation. So Finale of Revelation is kind of both. It's kind of mana generation and card draw and also graveyard recursion. So at a base value, it's blue X, so it's just better Mind Spring. But then if we cast X where it's 10 or more, we shuffle our graveyard into our deck, draw that many cards, untap 5 lands, and then we don't have any maximum hand size for the rest of the game. I cast this card for 10 and or more, and I find a lot of I either win the game that turn because I use the 5 mana of the 5 lands to do something dumb, or the game is done the next turn because I am able to keep all of those cards in my hand because I have no max hand size. Yeah. So you've got those. Stroke of Genius. Target player draws X cards. We also have Expansion Explosion here, which can copy spells, but a lot of the time I'm using it for the explosion side. We got Seagate Restoration, which is kind of crazy as well. You basically double your hand, and then you have no maximum hand size. Tezzeret's Gambit is another insane card. So you might be wondering, like, wait, why the heck are you proliferating? So if we proliferate, we are putting +1/+1 counters on Vadrik. So if we have, and this can also be cast for 0 mana. If we have Vadrik with at least 3 power, we cast this for 0, we draw 2, and put another counter on Vadrik. Feels so good. Yeah, free draw 2, I feel like is pretty crazy. Pretty good. Yeah, that's kind of it for the card draw. And then let's talk about how do we win the game, right? So like we're drawing lots of cards, we're generating lots of mana, making Vadrik's power very big. All right, so like we've done that a bunch. How are we winning the game? So the main way that I love to win the game is to get Vadrik's power up to 40. I know what you're thinking. How the heck are we doing that? And the main way that we're doing that is, again, casting Lunar Frenzies, casting Fists of Flames, yada yada, right? Like we're doing these, drawing lots of cards, continuing to generate mana, with Seething Song, Mana Geyser, whatnot. And again, we're casting a lot of these cards for very low mana. Like, we're not paying mana for any of these X. We're just announcing whatever X is based on what Vadrik's power is. So we're paying 2 mana to cast Finale of Revelation, or paying 2 mana to cast, or 1 mana to cast, Rush of Blood. Like, we're not paying 3 mana to cast this card. So, like, when people are asking, like, hey, well, how the heck are you paying for all these cards? So anyways, once we have generated around 40 power, to our Vadrik, I know it's still crazy to sound. We have a couple of ways of crazy X spells in order to win the game. So number 1 here, we got Comet Storm. So Comet Storm is just red X to deal X damage, but then we can also multi-kick it and add additional targets. So we pay 43 mana and we can kill 2 people. We pay 44 and we can kill 4 people. So if Vadrik's power is 44, they're dead. Kill 3 people at once. Same thing with Crackle with Power. I'm not even going to try and explain the math on this card. The Crackle with Power math gets very complicated. I would do it in game, but like very complicated. The easiest way is just Giant Immolating Inferno. Legendary sorcery, so you can only cast it if you have Vadrik, but Vadrik is like... Sorry, not if you have a Vadrik. A legendary, but traditionally, you're going to be casting this when you have Vadrik out. So, anyways, the legendary part isn't relevant. So, just cast it, deal 40, end the game. Otherwise, we got... I don't think there are... Anyways, but the other thing that we can do is we have Pass and Flames, and we also have Leer. And so then we can start, like, looping through our old cards. So one of the things that's really cool is, obviously, Blue Sun's Zenith shuffles into your deck, but you can also use it to make your opponent draw their deck, make them draw 40 cards, and then they die. Same thing for... Does Mindspring target? No. Stroke of Genius is able to target... And I forget if there's another effect. I think it's just those 2. So you can Stroke of Genius your opponent, make them draw, 50 cards or whatever, draw their deck. And then they lose the game. That's another way to win. And then the other way, there's a couple of other things. Like, there's also just, like, you can just, like, use Tolerant or, like, Niv Mizzet, or even Gutter Snipe. Gutter Snipe is like a weird one where it's like, is this really the best effect? They also have Rawl. Rawl deals 1 damage to an opponent whenever you cast a spell, or copy a spell, sorry. And so, these effects just kind of, you cast, 40 spells in a turn, which shouldn't be that hard. And then you eventually just, like, win the game that way. Just by casting lots and lots of spells. You also have, like, Metallurgic Summonings with, like, Zephi or Talrund. Also, Defy also has this thing where if you cast a spell with mana value 10, you just deal 10 to a random opponent. So like that can also do stuff. There's a whole bunch of ways. I'm being serious. Yeah, whole bunch of ways to just like, yeah. Um, Also you can attack people with Vadrik. I have never done that. I've never had that problem. I've never been like, I can only kill like 2 people. I have to attack this last person. But like theoretically, if you just cast Lunar Frenzy, it gets first strike and trample, and then you just like make it gigantic, and then you murder them. So yeah, you can see like there's a ton of ways. What are the other support cards in the deck? So some other support cards are, we got Mystical Tutor. We also have Solve the Equation to help us filter out, our really tutor for spells. These plus like searching for Past in Flames, searching for Apex of Power, searching for Brass's Bounty. All the really key cards that I just went over are very, very nice. Some other key cards, we got some counter spells. We have Counterspell Proper, Fierce Guardianship, because we want to protect Vadrik, as well as just standard negate and some things like that. Rewind is nice because you cast it, and then it can sometimes be like a frantic search and generate mana because you're casting it theoretically for like 2 mana or 3 mana if you have just Vadrik on 1. Another card that I really, really like is Celestis. The mana rock part of the card is not that crazy, but getting to just pay 3 mana and put a counter on Vadrik, and also like switch the day-night cycle, can be nice. Sometimes in Commander, it's going to be hard to control, the flipping, because like, especially when it's day, like you're pretty much going to be the only one triggering it today because no one's not casting spells. If 3 people are not casting spells, then something weird is going on. Primal Amulet is great. It flips, does busted stuff, works really, really well when you have cards like Frantic Search or things that untap lands. So you use the Primal Wellspring to like do the thing, and then you untap lands. And then you also see we have these equipments here. We got Black Blade Reforged and Runechanter's Pike. Runechanter's Pike being a really, really good because it gets first strike, but also gets +X+O, where X is the number of instants and sorceries in your yard. So you cast a lot of spells, equip this onto your Vadrik, it's gigantic, you're going off. I also love the classes here. The classes do a really cool job here. There's a lot of effects, speaking of Wizard's class, that give you no max hand size. We talked about Finale of Revelation. We talked about Seagate Restoration, but we also have Thought Vessel as well as Reliquary Tower, and then Wizard's Class also just being another effect of that. Really, really nice. Getting to draw 2 cards. A thing that I like about this is you play this on turn 1. You play Vadrik on turn 3, theoretically, and then on turn 4, you can just draw 2 cards with Wizard's Class, do something with your mana, and then flip Vadrik because leveling this up does not count as casting a spell, obviously. So cool play pattern. And then there are some times where I will like get this up to level 3 and just go off because you draw cards, you put counters on Vadrik, and you just keep going. And you can kind of see based on how the deck works that like if you ever do that and you have Vadrik out, you're kind of winning. Sorcerer's Class is another really good one. The loot is like fine as we've seen, but once you get it to level 2, using your creatures as well as using your tokens from either Young Pyromancer, Talrand, Zephi, or something like that to generate mana, really, really nice. And then also level 3 kind of being a storm win condition. That's another way that you could win the game, by the way. Yeah. Let's see what other support cards we have. Swiftfoot Boots, notably not Lightning Grooves because we can't give Shroud to Vadrik. We need to be able to target it because of things like Lunar Frenzy. We can't target it if it's got Shroud. Fact or Fiction, Windfall, Mystic Retrieval. These are all fairly standard cards that you'd expect. Nothing to stand out here. Of course, you got Cyclonic Rift. Just good interaction with like Chaos Warp. And then I think I got all the stuff here. The lands are fairly standard. I added in an extra Arid Mesa to work with Brainstorm, as well as I think that's all the stuff that I added. Um, and then Mystic Sanctuary here being a nice one. We sometimes struggle to get 3 islands, but like it's fine. Like if this comes into play tapped and it's an island, it's fine. So yeah. Um, what else we got going on here? So yeah, let's talk about the combos, the other combos that are in this deck, because it is just a normal storm deck. Like it is a storm deck. I don't want people to think like, you're not really a storm deck if you have infinite combos that just let you win the game. We are a storm deck, but there are some ways that I found that I can just be like, oops, I go infinite. So the main ones are Stormkiln Artist or Bergie. And you can have 1 or 2 of those. And if you have 2, then it's actually infinite mana. If you have 1, it's just infinite spellcast. So the card that these combo with is Seething Anger. So Seething Anger is the 1 mana +3/+0 until end of turn. But it has buyback for 3. Buyback is if you play it and you play the buyback, that goes back to your hand as opposed to going into the graveyard when it resolves. So if we have Vadrik with at least 3 power, 3 or more power, and we have either Bergie or Stormkiln, we can cast the Seething Anger, pay for its buyback just by having Vadrik out, right? So the buyback applies to, or is able to be paid with Vadrik's discount cost. And then we can just, when we cast the Seething Anger, we get a mana either from Bergie or from Stormkiln Artist. And then as this card resolves, the Seething Anger will come back into our hand. And now we can just repeat the process an infinite amount of times because we are getting a mana every time we cast Seething Anger, and we can buy back Seething Anger for just 1 mana. So this nets to infinite spellcasts as well as infinite power on Vadrik. So if you're trying to win the game, like with your, let's say your Jaya Assimilating Inferno, and you have those enablers, you just do that a bunch of times, cast your Jaya Assimilating Inferno for a bajillion, as I've said. Or you can, win using the things like Gutter Snipe, dealing 2 damage to each opponent when you cast a spell, and do that for infinite damage. If you add a second Bergie or Stormkiln, if you have them both out, then all of a sudden it's infinite mana in addition to infinite power. You have infinite treasures, presumably because you'd rather have the colored mana, the mana of any color, so you can cast some blue spells, draw your deck, the whole shebang. So yeah. So that is a cool combo that you can do with these guys. Another thing that you can add into the mix is Reiterate. So Reiterate is another, spoiler alert guys, all of the cards that combo really well are buyback cards. So Reiterate is 1 red with buyback for 3, copy target instant or sorcery, choose new targets. So this combos with Seething Song or with Brass's Bounty when you make enough mana. So you theoretically you cast Brass's Bounty for 1 mana if you have Vadrik at 6 power. You Reiterate with buyback, you copy the Brass's Bounty, so there's a copy of Brass's Bounty and then the original Brass's Bounty lower on the stack. The copy ends up making treasures, enough treasures for you to just cast the Reiterate again with buyback from your hand, and you keep on doing that. So you are generating infinite treasures or infinite mana with Seething Song, and then you also just have infinite cast and copy. So this is where the whole copy clause, for Archmage Emeritus or something like that, or Rawl comes into play, where each time you are reiterating, you are not only casting a spell, you're also copying a spell, so you're getting 2 damage, each time you cast and buy back the reiterate. You could theoretically do that also with 2 Bergies and Stormkiln Artist. So if you have because Stormkiln Artist is, oh no, it's just Stormkiln Artist because it says whenever you cast or copy. So Stormkiln Artist plus reiterate is also infinite cast, because you cast any spell. Doesn't have to be a mana spell. Any spell you cast reiterate, you off the cast you get a treasure token. Off the copying of the spell you get a second treasure token, and now you have 2 mana to recast your reiterate after the reiterate resolves. Yeah, so you can already see like the combos are kind of cool, like, and those you can sometimes just get by increasing Vadrik's power, drawing lots of cards, and then just finding them. So yeah, I when I realized this, I was like kind of sad. I was like, I kind of wanted to be like a storm deck, but like it still is a storm deck, but like, yeah, I'm kind of like, I feel cheesy when I'm just like, oh, I'm doing the thing, generating mana, drawing lots of cards. Oops, I drew into an infinite combo. And I feel like I'm kind of cheesing people. So if I know like I have the resources to, like I have like my Pass in Flames, or I have, Leer or something, and I like have like ways to like rebuy Apex of Power. Mystic Retrieval into Apex of Power like is probably just, or Apex of Power into Mystic Retrieval to get Apex of Power back is just game most of the time I've seen. So if I have that, then I will use that to win the game as opposed to my infinites. But yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the deck. There's not really much more to go into. I don't want to make this too long, but yeah, this is the deck. Again, really, really fun. A lot of people will just, by the way, playing against the deck is just kill Vadrik. Just kill Vadrik. Kill Vadrik, make me pay 5, 7, 9, whatever mana for it, and just keep delaying me. And I pretty much just never win unless I draw into my combos. Vadrik is kind of the quintessential part of the deck. That's kind of the deck, guys. I don't want to go into too much more, but I did just want to say I like this deck for a lot of reasons. Obviously, it's an Izzet deck. It's a spells deck. Very, very fun in that regard. That's kind of the thing that I've always, the archetype that I've always enjoyed about Magic. And then the other thing that I really like about this deck is the whole part of Commander, where you are building around your commander, but you're also you're not just doing that, but you're also just like able to use cards in a way that they haven't been used before, because of the nature of Commander and the uniqueness of your commander. So I really like when decks have crazy unique cards where I have to read. I have to read the card. Like, wait, what the heck? What the heck does this card do? Like, I've never seen this card before, and it's because it works so well with the commander. So like, Enrage is a card that I didn't know of before, and now like I know because of Vadrik. Things like Mind Spring was a card that I hadn't played before. And so the same thing with Seething Anger. Like, Seething Anger obviously works really, really well with Vadrik. And same thing for, I get to play with Runechanter's Pike. Runechanter's Pike was like one of like the cards, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that's cool. So very, very cool that like it just feels very unique. I feel like I'm playing a very unique deck. Obviously I'm doing like similar things to other storm decks in Commander probably, but it's still pretty cool. Yeah, nothing's better than casting Jaya Assimilating Inferno. This is, if I could pick how I win the game every time, it would be casting this card for 40 100% of the time. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, remember, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. If you really did like this, I know this was kind of like my first time doing this. I'm gonna try and get better at explaining these things, talking about it. I tried to organize myself as much as I could. But yeah, if you guys have any tips for me or any deck lists that you guys would like me to review, excuse me, whether it's your own or somebody else's, feel free to send it to me either in the comments, or you guys can join my Discord, link in the description. Yeah, hopefully I'll do more of these. If you guys want to watch me live, remember you can find me at twitch.tv/roxor098. And yeah, I'll see you guys for the next video.